What if one book could show you how it feels to carry history on your shoulders, to face pressure, to stand in front of the world, to feel doubt, and still choose courage? Welcome to Book Verse. Here we turn powerful books into simple and helpful ideas. Ideas that support your strength, your clarity, and your emotional truth. Today's video is about 107 Days by Kamala Harris. This book tells the story of a woman who was given the weight of a nation. She had only 107 days to lead a campaign. It was fast. It was intense. It was personal. This is not just a summary. It is a reflection, a guide through ambition, loyalty, and emotional pressure. It shows how one woman tried to stay strong while the world watched. We have broken this book into 12 short sections. Each section will walk you through the emotional journey, from chaos to clarity, from pressure to purpose. So stay with us. Let us explore this powerful book together. Before we begin, please subscribe to Book Verse. Give this video a thumbs up to support our work, and turn on the bell so you never miss a new idea that can help you grow. Let us begin. Section 1. The Sudden Shift. It started with silence. Then came the call. Kamala Harris was not ready. But history did not wait. Joe Biden had stepped down. The party needed a name, a face, a voice. They chose her. It was not a question. It was a moment. Fast, heavy, unreal. She was handed the nomination. No time to plan. No time to pause. Only 107 days to run, to lead, to carry the weight of a nation. Kamala sat alone. She looked at her phone. She felt her chest tighten. This was not how she imagined it. Not like this. Not this fast. She had served. She had spoken. She had waited. But now, everything changed. The pressure was instant. The spotlight was sharp. The silence was gone. Now came the noise. Her team rushed in. Calls were made. Rooms were filled. Maps were drawn. But inside, Kamala felt still. She thought of her mother. She thought of her past. She thought of the promises she made. To herself. To her people. To the idea of America. She did not smile. She did not cry. She just breathed. The campaign began. Fast. Loud. Unforgiving. There was no warm-up. No slow start. Only speed. Only pressure. Every hour mattered. Every word was watched. Every move was judged. Kamala walked into the first meeting. Eyes turned. Voices quieted. She nodded. She listened. She led. But inside, she felt the storm. The fear. The doubt. The weight. She asked herself, "Can I do this? Can I carry this? Can I survive this?" She did not have answers. Only time. Only instinct. Only courage. The first speech was written in hours. The first rally was booked in minutes. The first headline came before she spoke. She was everywhere. On screens. In papers. In whispers. Some cheered. Some doubted. Some waited. Kamala did not wait. She moved. She spoke. She stood. But each step felt heavy. Each word felt sharp. Each breath felt borrowed. She missed sleep. She missed quiet. She missed herself. But she kept going. Because history had called. And she had answered. The campaign was not just fast. It was fragile. It was fierce. It was personal. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw fear. She saw both. Kamala knew this was not just politics. This was legacy. This was memory. This was pain. She remembered the women before her. The voices that were silenced. The dreams that were delayed. She did not want to be another delay. She wanted to be a beginning. The team worked day and night. They built a message. They built a map. They built a movement. But Kamala built something else. She built resolve. She built rhythm. She built a way to breathe. She cried once. Alone. In a quiet room. Then she wiped her face. And walked back out. Because the world was watching. And she was not done. She remembered her childhood. The marches. The speeches. The lessons. She remembered her mentors. The ones who told her, "You will be tested. You will be tired. But you must keep going." She remembered the quiet nights. The long flights. The lonely mornings. She remembered why she started. Not for power. Not for fame. But for change. She walked into the press room. Lights flashed. Questions flew. She answered with calm. She answered with care. But inside, her heart raced. Her mind spun. Her soul stretched. She was not just a candidate. She was a symbol. She was a story. She was a mirror. People saw their hopes in her. Their fears. Their fight. She carried all of it. And still she stood. The campaign was not kind. It was not soft. It was not slow. But Kamala was steady. She was sharp. She was present. She did not pretend. She did not perform. She did not hide. She showed up. As herself. Every day. Every hour. Every breath. The sudden shift had changed everything. But it had also revealed something. Kamala Harris was ready. Not because she felt ready. But because she chose to be. She did not ask for this moment. But she did not run from it. She stepped into it. With fear. With fire. With faith. She knew the road would be hard. She knew the critics would speak. She knew the pressure would rise. But she also knew her voice. She knew her story. She knew her strength. She stood at the podium. She looked at the crowd. She paused. She breathed. She began. The campaign had started. The shift was real. The clock was ticking. Kamala Harris had 107 days. To speak. To lead. To endure. And she was ready. Section 2. The clock starts. The clock had started. Kamala Harris had 107 days. Not 108. Not 120. Just 107. Every minute mattered. Every hour was pressure. Every day was a test. There was no time to settle. No time to breathe. No time to wait. The team scrambled. They moved fast. They spoke fast. They planned fast. Kamala watched them. She listened. She stayed quiet. But her mind was racing. She knew what was coming. She knew what was expected. She knew what was at stake. This was not just a campaign. This was a sprint. This was a storm. This was survival. The first meeting began. People brought laptops. People brought charts. People brought nerves. Kamala sat at the head. She looked calm. She looked focused. But inside, she felt the weight. She asked one question. What is the plan? The room went silent. Then voices filled the air. We need a message. We need a map. We need a team. Kamala nodded. She agreed. But she added something else. We need heart. We need truth. We need connection. The campaign could not be noise. It had to be meaning. It had to be memory. It had to be real. The team started building. They made calls. They booked venues. They wrote drafts. Kamala made her own list. She wrote names. She wrote values. She wrote fears. She knew the pressure. She knew the critics. She knew the history. She had seen campaigns before. She had seen mistakes. She had seen collapse. She did not want collapse. She wanted clarity. She wanted courage. The first 24 hours were chaos. Phones rang non-stop. Emails flooded in. Schedules changed every hour. Kamala stayed grounded. She drank water. She took notes. She stayed present. She asked for updates. She asked for honesty. She asked for care. Her staff worked hard. They skipped meals. They skipped sleep. They skipped comfort. They believed in her. They believed in the mission. They believed in the moment. Kamala felt that belief. She carried it. She honored it. But she also felt fear. She felt doubt. She felt pressure. She did not hide it. She did not ignore it. She faced it. She walked into the strategy room. Maps covered the walls. States were marked. Numbers were circled. She looked at the board. She saw battlegrounds. She saw timelines. She saw risk. She asked again, "What is the plan?" The team answered, "We go bold. We go fast. We go everywhere." Kamala paused. She thought. She spoke. "We go honest. We go deep. We go human." She did not want noise. She wanted meaning. She wanted impact. The message had to be clear. It had to be strong. It had to be kind. She wrote the first line. "America is ready. Ready for truth. Ready for change." The team built around it. They added stories. They added facts. They added feeling. Kamala approved each word. She changed phrases. She softened tones. She sharpened points. She knew words mattered. She knew tone mattered. She knew timing mattered. The first speech was drafted. It was bold. It was sharp. It was fast. Kamala read it. She paused. She rewrote it. She added silence. She added breath. She added heart. She wanted people to feel. Not just hear. Not just watch. But feel. The team worked through the night. They tested sound. They tested lighting. They tested pacing. Kamala practiced. She stood alone. She spoke aloud. She listened to herself. She changed her rhythm. She changed her posture. She changed her tone. She was not performing. She was preparing. She was becoming. The next morning came. The first event was near. The first crowd was waiting. Kamala dressed slowly. She chose her colors. She chose her shoes. She chose her calm. She looked in the mirror. She saw strength. She saw fear. She saw both. She walked to the car. She sat in silence. She closed her eyes. She remembered her mother. She remembered her promise. She remembered her purpose. The car moved. The city passed by. The noise grew louder. Kamala stayed quiet. She stayed focused. She stayed present. She arrived at the venue. She stepped out. She smiled. She waved. But inside, she felt the clock. Ticking. Pushing. Pulling. She walked backstage. She greeted her team. She breathed deeply. She held the microphone. She stepped forward. She began. Her voice was steady. Her words were clear. Her message was strong. She spoke of truth. She spoke of unity. She spoke of hope. The crowd listened. The crowd nodded. The crowd felt. Kamala finished. She stepped back. She exhaled. The first moment was done. The first step was taken. The clock kept ticking. She returned to the car. She looked out the window. She stayed quiet. She knew what came next. More speeches. More meetings. More pressure. But she also knew something else. She was ready. She was present. She was real. The team reviewed the day. They listed wins. They listed gaps. They listed goals. Kamala listened. She asked questions. She gave thanks. She reminded them. This is not just politics. This is people. This is purpose. They nodded. They agreed. They believed. The next day began. The clock kept moving. The pressure kept rising. Kamala kept showing up. She kept speaking. She kept leading. She did not rush. She did not panic. She did not quit. She stayed grounded. She stayed honest. She stayed kind. The strategy grew stronger. The message grew clearer. The team grew closer. They faced problems. They faced critics. They faced stress. But they also found rhythm. They found trust. They found hope. Kamala led with care. She led with courage. She led with truth. She did not pretend. She did not perform. She did not hide. She showed up as herself every time. The clock kept ticking. But so did her heart. So did her voice. So did her mission. She knew the road was long. She knew the days were short. She knew the stakes were high. But she also knew her story. She knew her strength. She knew her soul. She kept going. She kept building. She kept believing. Because 107 days is not much. But it is enough. Enough to speak. Enough to lead. Enough to change. Kamala Harris had started. The clock was moving. The strategy was growing. And she was ready. Section 3. The emotional weight. The pressure was growing. Not just outside, but inside. Kamala Harris felt it. In her chest. In her breath. In her bones. She had stepped into history. But history was heavy. It did not wait. It did not rest. It did not care. Every morning felt faster. Every night felt shorter. Every moment felt louder. She woke up early. She stared at the ceiling. She did not move. She just listened. To the silence. To the noise inside her. She thought about loyalty. Who had stood with her? Who had walked away? Who had stayed quiet? She remembered old friends. Some had called. Some had vanished. Some had changed. She did not blame them. But she felt the shift. She felt the distance. She felt the loss. She thought about legacy. What she would leave behind. What she would carry forward. What she would protect. She remembered her mother's voice. Strong. Clear. Kind. She remembered the marches. The speeches. The stories. She remembered the women before her. The ones who were not chosen. The ones who were not heard. The ones who were not safe. She wanted to honor them. She wanted to carry them. She wanted to speak for them. But she also wanted to breathe. To rest. To feel. She was tired. Not just physically. But emotionally. Spiritually. She missed quiet. She missed stillness. She missed herself. She looked in the mirror. She saw her face. She saw her eyes. She saw the weight. She did not cry. She did not break. She did not run. But she felt it. Deep. Sharp. Real. She walked into the meeting. She smiled. She nodded. She listened. But her mind was somewhere else. In the past. In the future. In the fear. She feared failure. She feared betrayal. She feared regret. She did not speak of it. She carried it quietly. She carried it alone. She remembered the headlines. The critics. The comments. She remembered the pressure. To be perfect. To be strong. To be calm. She was all of those things. But she was also human. She was also hurting. She was also healing. She walked into the press room. She stood tall. She spoke clearly. She smiled gently. But inside, she felt the cracks. The questions. The weight. She asked herself, am I enough? Am I ready? Am I real? She did not answer. She just kept moving. One step. One breath. One moment. She sat with her team. They talked strategy. They talked numbers. They talked goals. She nodded. She agreed. She contributed. But her heart was elsewhere. In the memories. In the emotions. In the cost. She missed her family. She missed her home. She missed her peace. She missed laughing. She missed resting. She missed being unseen. She was always seen now. Always watched. Always judged. She carried the hopes of many. She carried the doubts of many. She carried the silence of many. She did not complain. She did not collapse. She did not quit. But she felt it. Every day. Every hour. Every breath. She walked into the green room. She sat alone. She closed her eyes. She remembered her childhood. The books. The questions. The dreams. She remembered her first speech. Her first vote. Her first loss. She remembered the pain. The growth. The lessons. She remembered why she started. Not for power. Not for fame. But for change. She opened her eyes. She stood up. She walked out. She smiled at the crowd. She waved at the cameras. She spoke to the people. She gave them hope. She gave them truth. She gave them herself. But she kept a part inside. A quiet part. A tired part. A sacred part. She protected it. She needed it. She honored it. She walked back to her room. She sat on the bed. She took off her shoes. She looked at her phone. Messages blinked. Calls waited. Emails piled up. She ignored them. Just for a moment. Just for a breath. She stared at the wall. She felt the silence. She welcomed it. She thought about fear. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. The fear of not being enough. The fear of letting people down. The fear of losing herself. She did not fight it. She did not hide it. She faced it. She whispered to herself, "You are here. You are whole. You are strong." She believed it. Not fully, but enough. She stood up. She stretched. She smiled. She walked to the window. She looked at the sky. She breathed deeply. She remembered her purpose. She remembered her promise. She remembered her power. She was not perfect. She was not fearless. She was not untouched. But she was present. She was real. She was ready. The emotional weight was real. It was heavy. It was sharp. It was constant. But it was also sacred. It was also honest. It was also hers. Kamala Harris carried it. Not with ease, but with grace. She did not ask for it. But she did not reject it. She accepted it. She embraced it. She transformed it. She turned pain into purpose. She turned fear into fuel. She turned pressure into presence. She kept going. She kept leading. She kept believing. Because the emotional weight was not a weakness. It was a reminder. A mirror. A truth. It showed her who she was. It showed her what she valued. It showed her what she could endure. And she endured. With heart. With fire. With faith. Section 4. Building the team. Kamala Harris could not do this alone. She knew that from the start. She needed a team. Not just any team. She needed the right people. People who understood the mission. People who could move fast. People who could stay calm under pressure. The campaign had begun. The clock was ticking. The weight was growing. She sat at her desk. She opened her notebook. She wrote one word. Trust. That was the foundation. That was the goal. That was the risk. She started making calls. Old allies. New voices. Quiet thinkers. Some said yes. Some said no. Some needed time. Kamala respected that. She did not beg. She did not push. She invited. She wanted people who believed. Not just in her, but in the work. In the message. In the moment. Her first call was to a friend. Someone who had stood with her before. Someone who had seen her rise. Someone who had seen her fall. He answered quickly. He said, "I am in. No questions. No hesitation." Kamala smiled. She felt a spark. She felt a start. She made another call. This time to a strategist. Smart. Sharp. Seasoned. She asked one question. "Can you help me build this?" The answer came fast. "Yes. Let us begin." The list grew longer. Names were added. Roles were defined. Calls kept coming. Kamala did not rush. She chose carefully. She listened deeply. She wanted balance. She wanted diversity. She wanted strength. She looked for people who could speak truth. Even when it was hard. Even when it was uncomfortable. Even when it was risky. She did not want yes men. She wanted real minds. Real hearts. Real grit. The first meeting was quiet. 10 people. 1 room. 1 goal. Kamala walked in. She looked at each face. She nodded slowly. She said, "We have 107 days. We have 1 chance. We have 1 story." She paused. She breathed. She continued. "I need you. I need your voice. I need your courage." The room stayed silent. Then one person spoke. "We are with you. All the way." Kamala felt it. Not just the words, but the energy, the commitment. She smiled. She said thank you. She said let us begin. They started with roles. Who would lead strategy? Who would manage media? Who would handle logistics? Kamala listened. She asked questions. She gave space. She did not dominate. She collaborated. She trusted. She knew leadership was not control. It was connection. It was clarity. It was care. The team began to grow. Writers, organizers, advisors. Each person brought something. Experience, insight, fire. Kamala welcomed them. She made time for each one. She asked about their lives, their hopes, their fears. She wanted to know them, not just their skills, but their stories. She believed in people. She believed in relationships. She believed in respect. The campaign office was small, but it was alive. Phones rang. Screens glowed. Voices filled the air. Kamala walked through the halls. She greeted everyone. She asked how they were. She listened. She did not hide in a corner office. She stayed close. She stayed present. She knew morale mattered. She knew energy mattered. She knew kindness mattered. She brought snacks. She brought music. She brought warmth. She made jokes. She shared stories. She gave hugs. She was not just a candidate. She was a leader. She was a teammate. She was a friend. The team responded. They worked harder. They worked smarter. They worked together. They faced problems, tech issues, schedule changes, media pressure. But they stayed calm. They stayed focused. They stayed united. Kamala led with grace. She did not yell. She did not panic. She did not blame. She asked, "What do we need? How can I help? What is the next step?" Her team respected that. They felt safe. They felt seen. They felt strong. They built a rhythm. Morning briefings. Afternoon check-ins. Evening reviews. Kamala showed up for each one. She took notes. She gave feedback. She asked questions. She did not pretend to know everything. She listened. She learned. She adapted. She trusted her team. And they trusted her. One night, a staffer broke down. Too much pressure. Too little sleep. Too many tasks. Kamala sat beside her. She held her hand. She said, "You are not alone." She offered rest. She offered support. She offered care. The staffer cried, then smiled, then returned. Because kindness heals. Because leadership lifts. Because presence matters. Kamala kept building. She added new voices, young minds, fresh ideas. She welcomed challenge. She welcomed change. She welcomed growth. She asked for feedback. She asked for honesty. She asked for truth. She received it. She respected it. She used it. The team became a family. They laughed together. They struggled together. They dreamed together. They believed in the mission. They believed in Kamala. They believed in each other. Kamala felt that belief. She carried it. She honored it. She knew the road was hard. She knew the days were short. She knew the stakes were high. But she also knew her team. She knew their hearts. She knew their strength. She kept showing up. She kept leading. She kept believing. Because building a team is not just strategy. It is soul. It is story. It is love. Kamala Harris built that. With care. With courage. With truth. And the team stood with her. Ready. Focused. United. Section 5. The first steps. The campaign hit the road. The first steps were taken. The journey had begun. Kamala Harris stood at the edge. Not of a stage, but of a moment. A moment that could change everything. She looked at the crowd. She looked at the lights. She looked at the sky. She felt the wind. She felt the weight. She felt the hope. Her team stood behind her. Her voice stood inside her. Her story stood beside her. The first event was small. A local hall. A few hundred chairs. A few hundred hearts. Kamala walked in slowly. She smiled gently. She waved softly. She did not rush. She did not perform. She did not pretend. She stood still. She breathed deeply. She began. Her voice was calm. Her words were clear. Her message was honest. She spoke of truth. She spoke of unity. She spoke of healing. The crowd listened. Some nodded. Some cried. Some clapped. Kamala paused. She looked at their faces. She saw doubt. She saw hope. She saw both. She knew what they felt. She felt it too. She carried it too. She finished her speech. She stepped down. She walked through the crowd. People reached out. People whispered. People thanked her. She smiled. She hugged. She listened. She heard stories. Of pain. Of fear. Of strength. She heard questions. Will you fight for us? Will you stay honest? Will you keep going? She answered softly. Yes, I will. The first steps were not easy. They were slow. They were shaky. They were real. Kamala returned to her car. She sat quietly. She looked out the window. She did not speak. She did not move. She just thought. She thought about the road ahead. The cities. The towns. The faces. She thought about the pressure. The cameras. The critics. The chaos. She thought about the mission. The message. The meaning. She closed her eyes. She breathed again. She whispered to herself. Keep going. Stay true. Stay strong. The next day came fast. Another event. Another crowd. Another test. Kamala dressed with care. She chose her colors. She chose her tone. She chose her calm. She arrived early. She walked the space. She felt the energy. She met the staff. She thanked the volunteers. She greeted the guests. She stepped onto the stage. She looked around. She began again. Her voice carried. Her words landed. Her presence mattered. She spoke about justice. She spoke about dignity. She spoke about dreams. She did not shout. She did not rush. She did not hide. She stood tall. She stood true. She stood open. The crowd responded. They clapped. They cheered. They cried. Kamala felt it. Not just the noise, but the connection. She finished. She stepped down. She walked again. She met a young girl. Eyes wide. Hands shaking. She said, "You make me feel brave." Kamala smiled. She knelt down. She said, "You already are." The girl hugged her. Kamala hugged back. She felt the moment. She carried it. She honored it. She remembered it. The campaign kept moving. City to city. State to state. Step by step. Each place was different. Each crowd was unique. Each moment was alive. Kamala adapted. She listened. She learned. She changed her tone. She changed her pace. She changed her rhythm. But she did not change her truth. She stayed honest. She stayed kind. She stayed present. She met farmers. She met teachers. She met nurses. She met parents. She met students. She met elders. She heard their stories. She felt their pain. She saw their strength. She did not promise everything. She promised effort. She promised care. She promised truth. Her team watched her. They saw her grow. They saw her glow. They saw her struggle. They saw her rise. They saw her lead. Kamala felt their support. She felt their belief. She felt their love. She gave it back. With words. With actions. With presence. The road was long. The days were full. The nights were short. She missed sleep. She missed quiet. She missed home. But she kept going. Because people needed her. Because truth needed her. Because history needed her. She faced critics. She faced questions. She faced doubt. But she also faced hope. She faced courage. She faced light. She walked into a school. Children lined the halls. They waved. They smiled. Kamala waved back. She knelt down. She said hello. One child asked, "Are you tired?" Kamala smiled. She said, "Yes. But I am here." The child nodded. He said, "That is brave." Kamala felt it. She carried it. She believed it. She walked into a church. She sat in the back. She listened to the choir. She closed her eyes. She felt the music. She felt the peace. She prayed quietly. Not for victory, but for strength. She prayed for her team. She prayed for her country. She prayed for herself. She walked out slowly. She smiled at the pastor. She said thank you. He said, "Keep walking. Keep shining. Keep believing." She nodded. She said, "I will." The campaign kept moving. The road kept stretching. The journey kept unfolding. Kamala kept showing up. She kept speaking. She kept standing. She did not hide her fear. She did not hide her doubt. She did not hide her heart. She shared it. She opened it. She honored it. She gave people her truth. She gave people her time. She gave people her care. They gave it back. With smiles. With hugs. With hope. The first steps were taken. They were not perfect. They were not easy. They were not smooth. But they were real. They were brave. They were hers. Kamala Harris walked forward. With doubt. With hope. With fire. And she kept walking. Section 6. The debate stage. The lights were bright. The room was cold. The cameras were ready. The nation was watching. Kamala Harris stood backstage. She held her notes. She held her breath. She held her fear. This was the debate stage. This was the moment. This was the test. She had spoken before. She had faced crowds. She had answered questions. But this was different. This was sharper. This was louder. This was heavier. She looked at the podium. She looked at the seats. She looked at the clock. She felt her heart race. She felt her hands shake. She felt her thoughts spin. Her team stood nearby. They whispered encouragement. They offered calm. They gave space. Kamala nodded. She smiled softly. She stepped forward. She walked slowly. She stood tall. She breathed deeply. The moderator welcomed her. The audience clapped. The cameras zoomed in. She adjusted the mic. She looked straight ahead. She began. Her voice was steady. Her tone was clear. Her words were strong. She spoke about justice. She spoke about truth. She spoke about leadership. She did not flinch. She did not rush. She did not stumble. She answered questions. She defended her record. She explained her plan. She used facts. She used stories. She used heart. She looked confident. She looked focused. She looked ready. But inside, she questioned everything. Every word. Every pause. Every glance. She asked herself, "Am I saying enough? Am I saying too much? Am I reaching them? She felt the pressure. She felt the judgment. She felt the weight. She remembered past debates. The noise. The nerves. The nights without sleep. She remembered the critics. The headlines. The comments. The doubts. She remembered her promise. To stay honest. To stay kind. To stay strong. She kept going. She kept speaking. She kept standing. The questions grew harder. The tone grew sharper. The room grew tense. Kamala stayed calm. She stayed clear. She stayed present. She did not attack. She did not retreat. She did not break. She spoke with purpose. She spoke with care. She spoke with courage. But inside, she felt the storm. The fear of failure. The fear of missteps. The fear of being misunderstood. She looked at the audience. She saw faces. She saw eyes. She saw emotion. She wondered, are they with me? Are they against me? Are they listening? She did not know. She could not tell. She could only trust. She trusted her voice. She trusted her truth. She trusted her heart. She remembered her mother's words. Speak with love. Speak with strength. Speak with grace. She remembered her team's advice. Be clear. Be calm. Be real. She remembered her own promise. Do not perform. Do not pretend. Do not forget who you are. She kept going. She kept answering. She kept leading. The debate moved fast. Topics changed quickly. Time slipped away. Kamala stayed focused. She stayed grounded. She stayed open. She spoke about healthcare. She spoke about education. She spoke about unity. She did not use slogans. She used stories. She used facts. She used feeling. She shared her journey. She shared her pain. She shared her hope. She looked at the moderator. She looked at the camera. She looked at the future. She felt tired. She felt stretched. She felt exposed. But she did not stop. She did not fade. She did not fall. She finished her final answer. She thanked the audience. She stepped back. The debate was over. The lights dimmed. The cameras turned off. Kamala walked backstage. Her team rushed in. They smiled. They hugged. They praised. She nodded. She thanked them. She stayed quiet. She sat down. She closed her eyes. She breathed slowly. She asked herself, did I do enough? Did I stay true? Did I reach them? She did not know. She could not know. She could only wait. She opened her eyes. She looked at her phone. Messages poured in. Some were kind. Some were harsh. Some were confusing. She read a few. She put the phone down. She stared at the wall. She felt the silence. She felt the weight. She felt the truth. She had faced the nation. She had spoken with strength. She had questioned everything. She remembered a moment. A question about leadership. She had answered with heart. She remembered another moment. A question about unity. She had answered with hope. She remembered one more. A question about fear. She had answered with honesty. She smiled softly. She whispered to herself, "You did your best." She stood up. She stretched. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw doubt. She saw both. She accepted both. She honored both. She carried both. She walked to her team. She thanked them again. She said, "Let us keep going." They nodded. They agreed. They believed. Kamala Harris had faced the debate stage. She had faced the nation. She had faced herself. And she was still standing. Section 7. Behind the scenes. The cameras showed one side. The speeches showed one voice. The headlines showed one version. But behind the scenes, everything was different. Kamala Harris was not just a candidate. She was a person. She was a leader. She was a woman under pressure. The campaign looked smooth from the outside. But inside, it was messy. It was loud. It was fragile. She woke up early, before the sun, before the noise, before the world. She sat in silence. She drank tea. She stared at the wall. She thought about the day ahead, the meetings, the travel, the questions. She felt tired. She felt stretched. She felt alone. Her team was loyal. Her team was strong. Her team was tired too. They worked long hours. They skipped meals. They missed birthdays. They believed in her. They believed in the mission. They believed in the moment. But belief does not erase exhaustion. Belief does not erase stress. Belief does not erase fear. Kamala saw it. In their eyes. In their posture. In their silence. She tried to help. She brought snacks. She shared jokes. She gave hugs. She listened. She cared. She stayed present. But she carried her own weight. Her own fear. Her own doubt. She questioned herself. Was I clear enough? Was I strong enough? Was I kind enough? She did not say it out loud. She kept it inside. She carried it quietly. She walked into the strategy room. Maps covered the walls. Numbers filled the screens. Voices filled the air. She nodded. She asked questions. She gave feedback. But her mind wandered. To the past. To the future. To the pressure. She remembered her first campaign. The mistakes. The lessons. The growth. She remembered the critics. The harsh words. The unfair labels. The silence. She remembered the support. The cheers. The hugs. The hope. She carried all of it. Every memory. Every moment. Every scar. She walked into the media room. Lights flashed. Mics waited. Questions flew. She smiled. She answered. She stayed calm. But inside, she felt the cracks. She felt the stretch. She felt the cost. She missed her family. She missed her home. She missed her peace. She missed laughing. She missed resting. She missed being unseen. She was always seen now. Always watched. Always judged. She carried the hopes of many. She carried the doubts of many. She carried the silence of many. She did not complain. She did not collapse. She did not quit. But she felt it. Every day. Every hour. Every breath. She walked into the green room. She sat alone. She closed her eyes. She remembered her childhood. The books. The questions. The dreams. She remembered her first speech. Her first vote. Her first loss. She remembered the pain. The growth. The lessons. She remembered why she started. Not for power. Not for fame. But for change. She opened her eyes. She stood up. She walked out. She smiled at the crowd. She waved at the cameras. She spoke to the people. She gave them hope. She gave them truth. She gave them herself. But she kept a part inside. A quiet part. A tired part. A sacred part. She protected it. She needed it. She honored it. She walked back to her room. She sat on the bed. She took off her shoes. She looked at her phone. Messages blinked. Calls waited. Emails piled up. She ignored them. Just for a moment. Just for a breath. She stared at the wall. She felt the silence. She welcomed it. She thought about fear. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. The fear of not being enough. The fear of letting people down. The fear of losing herself. She did not fight it. She did not hide it. She faced it. She whispered to herself, "You are here. You are whole. You are strong." She believed it. Not fully, but enough. She stood up. She stretched. She smiled. She walked to the window. She looked at the sky. She breathed deeply. She remembered her purpose. She remembered her promise. She remembered her power. She was not perfect. She was not fearless. She was not untouched. But she was present. She was real. She was ready. Behind the scenes. She cried sometimes. She laughed sometimes. She paused often. She called her sister. She called her friend. She called her mentor. She asked for advice. She asked for comfort. She asked for truth. She received it. She respected it. She used it. She wrote in her journal. She wrote her fears. She wrote her hopes. She wrote her truth. She read old letters. She read old speeches. She read old dreams. She found strength in memory. She found peace in silence. She found courage in reflection. She kept going. She kept leading. She kept believing. Because behind the scenes, she was not just building a campaign. She was building herself. She was healing. She was growing. She was becoming. Kamala Harris was not just a candidate. She was a woman in motion. She was a leader in progress. She was a soul in service. And behind the scenes, she stayed true. Section 8. The Turning Point. The campaign had been moving fast. City to city. Stage to stage. Day to day. Kamala Harris had been speaking. She had been listening. She had been leading. But something was shifting. Something quiet. Something deep. Something real. It was not in the headlines. It was not in the polls. It was not in the numbers. It was inside her. Inside her team. Inside the rhythm of the campaign. She felt it one morning. Before sunrise. Before meetings. Before noise. She sat alone. She held her tea. She stared at the wall. She felt tired. She felt stretched. She felt distant. She asked herself, "What are we doing? What are we building? What are we becoming?" She did not feel lost. She felt misaligned. She felt disconnected. She had been moving fast. Too fast. Too loud. Too wide. She wanted to slow down. To breathe. To listen. To feel. She called her campaign manager. She said, "We need to talk." They met in a quiet room. No screens. No charts. No noise. Kamala spoke first. She said, "We are missing something." Her manager nodded. He said, "I feel it too." They sat in silence. They let the moment breathe. They let the truth rise. Kamala said, "We need to reset. Not everything. Just the heart." Her manager asked, "What do you mean?" She said, "We are speaking to crowds. But we are not connecting. We are moving fast. But we are not feeling." He listened. He understood. He agreed. Kamala continued, "We need to go deeper. Not louder. Not bigger. Just deeper." She wanted to change the tone. She wanted to change the pace. She wanted to change the focus. She did not want to chase headlines. She wanted to chase healing. She wanted to chase truth. She said, "Let us choose clarity over noise. Let us choose connection over performance." Her manager smiled. He said, "Let us do it." That was the turning point. Not a speech. Not a debate. Not a poll. It was a decision. A shift. A choice. Kamala gathered her team. She spoke softly. She spoke clearly. She spoke honestly. She said, "We are changing direction. Not our values. Not our goals. Just our rhythm." She explained the new plan. Fewer events. More depth. More listening. She wanted town halls. She wanted small circles. She wanted real conversations. She wanted to hear stories. She wanted to feel emotion. She wanted to build trust. Her team responded. Some were surprised. Some were relieved. All were ready. They adjusted the schedule. They canceled big rallies. They booked small rooms. They called community leaders. They invited local voices. They opened the space. Kamala walked into the first new event. A library. A circle of chairs. A group of strangers. She sat down. She smiled. She listened. One woman spoke. She shared her pain. She shared her fear. She shared her hope. Kamala nodded. She asked questions. She offered care. Another person spoke. A teacher. Tired. Worried. Brave. Kamala leaned in. She said, "I hear you. I see you. I thank you." The room softened. The room opened. The room healed. Kamala did not give a speech. She gave presence. She gave time. She gave truth. She left the event changed. Not by applause, but by connection. She felt grounded. She felt clear. She felt real. The team saw it. They felt it. They believed in it. They kept going. Town to town. Circle to circle. Story to story. Kamala kept showing up. Not as a performer, but as a person. She cried sometimes. She laughed often. She listened always. She met a father. He had lost his job. He had lost his home. He had not lost his hope. Kamala held his hand. She said, "You matter. Your story matters." He nodded. He smiled. He thanked her. She met a nurse. Burned out. Overworked. Still caring. Kamala said, "You are the backbone. You are the light." The nurse cried. Kamala cried too. She met a student. Scared. Confused. Brilliant. Kamala said, "Keep asking questions. Keep being bold." The student smiled. She said, "I will." These moments changed Kamala. They shaped her. They strengthened her. She felt the shift. In her heart. In her voice. In her soul. She spoke differently now. Slower. Softer. Stronger. She did not chase applause. She chased truth. She chased healing. She did not fear silence. She welcomed it. She used it. She did not fear emotion. She honored it. She shared it. The media noticed. They asked questions. They wrote stories. Kamala did not explain. She just kept going. She just kept showing up. Her team felt the change. They worked with more care. They moved with more purpose. They spoke with more heart. They were not just building a campaign. They were building a movement. They were building a memory. They were building a mirror. Kamala Harris had found her rhythm. Not in noise, but in truth. She had found her voice. Not in performance, but in presence. She had found her strength. Not in control, but in connection. The turning point was not loud. It was quiet. It was deep. It was real. And it changed everything. Section 9. The critics speak. The pressure was rising. Not just from the inside, but from the outside. From the media. From the headlines. From the critics. Kamala Harris had been speaking with heart. She had been leading with care. She had been showing up with truth. But the world was watching. And the world was judging. Every word she said was recorded. Every pause she took was analyzed. Every look she gave was debated. She opened her phone. She saw the headlines. She saw the comments. She saw the noise. Some praised her. Some questioned her. Some attacked her. She read one article. It said, "Is she strong enough?" She read another. It said, "Is she too soft?" She read a third. It said, "Is she even real?" Kamala put the phone down. She stared at the wall. She breathed slowly. She felt the sting. She felt the weight. She felt the doubt. She did not cry. She did not shout. She did not run. She sat still. She listened to herself. She asked herself questions. Why do they doubt me? Why do they twist my words? Why do they ignore my truth? She did not have answers. She only had feelings. She only had fire. She walked into the strategy room. Her team was quiet. They had seen the headlines too. Kamala spoke first. She said, "Let us talk about it." They nodded. They leaned in. They listened. She said, "The critics are loud. The pressure is real. The judgment is sharp. But we are not here for them. We are here for the people. We are here for the truth." Her voice was steady. Her tone was clear. Her message was strong. She said, "Let us not chase approval. Let us not fear criticism. Let us stand firm." Her team agreed. They felt her strength. They followed her lead. Kamala walked into the next event. She stood tall. She spoke slowly. She spoke clearly. She did not change her message. She did not soften her truth. She did not hide her heart. She said, "I know what they are saying. I know what they are writing. I know what they are questioning. But I also know who I am. I also know why I am here. I also know what I believe." The crowd clapped. The crowd cheered. The crowd stood. Kamala smiled. She felt their support. She felt their energy. She met a woman after the event. She said, "Do not let them shake you." Kamala nodded. She said, "I will not." She met a young man. He said, "You speak for people like me." Kamala said, "Then I will keep speaking." She met a teacher. She said, "You give me hope." Kamala said, "You give me strength." The supporters were rising. They were rallying. They were believing. They shared her message. They defended her voice. They stood by her side. Kamala felt it. She carried it. She honored it. She walked into a town hall. She sat in a circle. She listened to stories. One person said, "I read what they wrote. But I know who you are." Kamala smiled. She said, "Thank you for seeing me." Another person said, "They do not understand your heart. But we do." Kamala nodded. She said, "That means everything." She left the event feeling stronger. Not because of applause, but because of connection. She returned to her room. She sat quietly. She opened her journal. She wrote her thoughts. She wrote her fears. She wrote her truth. She wrote, "I am not perfect. I am not polished. But I am present." She wrote, "I will not bend. I will not break. I will not hide." She closed the journal. She stood up. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw doubt. She saw both. She accepted both. She honored both. She carried both. She walked into the media room. She faced the cameras. She faced the questions. One reporter asked, "How do you respond to the criticism?" Kamala paused. She said, "I respond with truth. I respond with care. I respond with courage." Another reporter asked, "Do you feel the pressure?" Kamala said, "Of course I do. But I also feel the purpose." She did not dodge. She did not deflect. She did not deny. She stood firm. She stood open. She stood real. The critics kept speaking. The headlines kept spinning. The noise kept growing. But Kamala kept walking. She kept leading. She kept believing. She met with her team again. She said, "Let us stay focused. Let us stay grounded. Let us stay kind." They nodded. They agreed. They believed. They adjusted the strategy. They strengthened the message. They deepened the connection. Kamala spoke at a college. She said, "Do not let fear silence you." She spoke at a church. She said, "Do not let judgment shake you." She spoke at a shelter. She said, "Do not let criticism define you." Her voice was clear. Her heart was open. Her truth was strong. She met a journalist. He said, "You are changing the tone." Kamala said, "I am trying to change the story." He said, "It is working." She smiled. She said, "Thank you." She met a volunteer. She said, "I joined because of your honesty." Kamala said, "Then I will keep being honest." She met a child. She said, You are brave. Kamala said. So are you. The critics kept speaking. But the people kept believing. Kamala learned to stand firm. Not with anger. Not with pride. But with grace. She did not fight the critics. She faced them. She answered them. She moved past them. She did not fear the headlines. She focused on the hearts. She did not chase approval. She chased impact. She did not seek perfection. She sought presence. Kamala Harris had been tested. She had been questioned. She had been challenged. But she had also been lifted. She had been supported. She had been seen. And she stood firm. Section 10. The Final Push. The countdown had begun. The final days were here. The last stretch had arrived. Kamala Harris stood at the edge. Not of a stage, but of a finish line. A line she had not drawn, but one she had to cross. There were only a few days left. Not weeks. Not months. Just days. The team felt it. The tension. The urgency. The fatigue. Kamala felt it too. In her body. In her breath. In her bones. She woke up early. She sat in silence. She stared at her calendar. So many places. So many faces. So many promises. She whispered to herself, "Let us finish strong." She walked into the campaign office. Her team was already working. Phones ringing. Screens glowing. Voices rising. She smiled at them. She said, "We are almost there." They nodded. They smiled back. They kept going. The schedule was packed. 3 cities a day. 4 events a night. No breaks. Kamala moved fast. But she stayed present. She stayed kind. She stayed real. She spoke at rallies. She spoke at schools. She spoke at shelters. She met voters. She met volunteers. She met strangers. She listened to stories. She answered questions. She offered hope. Her voice was tired. Her feet were sore. Her heart was full. She walked into a gymnasium. Hundreds of people waited. Signs waving. Eyes shining. She stepped onto the stage. She paused. She breathed. She said, "We are close. We are ready. We are strong." The crowd cheered. The crowd clapped. The crowd believed. Kamala smiled. She felt their energy. She carried it with her. She left the event. She entered the car. She closed her eyes. She whispered, "Keep going." The next stop was a college. Young voices. Fresh questions. Big dreams. Kamala sat in a circle. She listened. She responded. She connected. One student asked, "Are you scared?" Kamala said, "Yes, but I am also brave." Another asked, "Are you tired?" She said, "Very, but I am still here." They nodded. They smiled. They thanked her. She stood up. She said, "You are the future. Keep asking. Keep leading." She walked out. She felt lighter. She felt stronger. The final push was not just about speed. It was about soul. It was about truth. It was about presence. Kamala met with her team. She said, "Let us stay focused. Let us stay kind. Let us stay clear." They adjusted the plan. They added more stops. They added more voices. Kamala agreed. She said, "Let us finish with heart." She walked into a church. She sat in the back. She listened to the choir. She closed her eyes. She felt the music. She felt the peace. She prayed quietly, not for victory, but for strength. She prayed for her team. She prayed for her country. She prayed for herself. She walked out slowly. She smiled at the pastor. She said, "Thank you." He said, "Keep walking. Keep shining. Keep believing." She nodded. She said, "I will." The final push was intense. But it was also sacred. Kamala met a nurse. She said, "You are the reason I keep going." She met a father. He said, "You speak for people like me." She met a child. She said, "You make me feel brave." Kamala carried those words. She carried those hearts. She carried that hope. She walked into a press room. She faced the cameras. She faced the questions. One reporter asked, "Are you ready?" Kamala said, "I am ready to serve. I am ready to lead. I am ready to finish." Another asked, "What will you do next?" She said, "I will keep showing up. I will keep speaking truth. I will keep standing tall." She did not flinch. She did not fold. She did not fade. She stood firm. She stood open. She stood real. The final push was not perfect. There were mistakes. There were delays. There were doubts. But Kamala kept going. She kept leading. She kept believing. She met with her team again. She said, "Thank you. For your time. For your heart. For your strength." They smiled. They cried. They clapped. She said, "We did this together." They nodded. They agreed. They believed. Kamala walked into her room. She sat on the bed. She took off her shoes. She looked at her notes. She looked at her calendar. She looked at her heart. She whispered, "We are almost there." She opened her journal. She wrote her thoughts. She wrote her fears. She wrote her truth. She wrote, "I am tired. I am stretched. I am grateful." She wrote, "I have given my voice. I have given my time. I have given my soul." She wrote, "I am proud. I am present. I am ready." She closed the journal. She stood up. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw doubt. She saw both. She accepted both. She honored both. She carried both. She whispered, "Let us finish strong." Kamala Harris had reached the final push. She had faced the pressure. She had faced the critics. She had faced herself. And she was still standing. Section 11. The last day. The last day had arrived. Not just on the calendar, but in the heart, in the breath, in the silence. Kamala Harris woke up early, before the sun, before the noise, before the world. She sat alone. She held her tea. She stared at the window. She whispered, "This is it." The final event was hours away. The final speech was written. The final steps were waiting. She felt everything. The pressure, the pride, the pain. She closed her eyes. She remembered the beginning, the call, the shock, the shift. She remembered the first meeting, the first speech, the first doubt. She remembered the long nights, the early mornings, the quiet tears. She remembered the people, the stories, the hugs. She remembered the critics, the headlines, the questions. She remembered her promise to stay honest, to stay kind, to stay strong. She opened her eyes. She stood up. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw fear. She saw both. She accepted both. She honored both. She carried both. She dressed slowly. She chose her colors. She chose her calm. She walked into the campaign office. Her team was waiting. They smiled. They clapped. They cried. Kamala smiled back. She said, "We made it." They nodded. They hugged. They believed. She thanked them for their time, for their heart, for their strength. She said, "No matter what happens, we did something real." They agreed. They felt it. They knew it. The final event was near. A large hall. A full crowd. A quiet tension. Kamala arrived early. She walked the space. She touched the podium. She sat in the green room. She closed her eyes. She breathed deeply. She whispered, "Let me speak with truth." She opened her journal. She read her words. She read her fears. She read her hope. She smiled softly. She said, "I am ready." She walked to the stage. The lights were bright. The crowd was loud. The moment was alive. She stood still. She looked around. She began. Her voice was calm. Her tone was clear. Her message was strong. She spoke about the journey. She spoke about the lessons. She spoke about the people. She said, "This campaign was not just mine. It was yours. It was ours." She said, "We faced pressure. We faced doubt. We faced fear. But we also found courage. We found connection. We found truth." She said, "I did not do this alone. I did this with you." The crowd clapped. The crowd cheered. The crowd cried. Kamala paused. She looked at their faces. She felt their hearts. She said, "No matter what tomorrow brings, I am proud of today." She said, "No matter what the results say, I am proud of this journey." She said, "No matter what the world decides, I am proud of who we became." She finished her speech. She stepped back. She exhaled. The crowd stood. They clapped. They waved. Kamala smiled. She waved back. She walked off the stage. She entered the green room. She sat down. She closed her eyes. She whispered, "We did it." Her team joined her. They hugged. They laughed. They cried. They said, "You were brilliant. You were brave. You were real." Kamala thanked them. She said, "You made this possible." They said, "You made this meaningful." She smiled. She said, "Let us rest now." She returned to her room. She sat on the bed. She took off her shoes. She looked at her phone. Messages poured in. Calls waited. Emails blinked. She ignored them. Just for a moment. Just for a breath. She opened her journal. She wrote her thoughts. She wrote her truth. She wrote, "Today was the last day. But it was also the best day." She wrote, "I gave my voice. I gave my heart. I gave my soul." She wrote, "I am proud. I am grateful. I am whole." She closed the journal. She walked to the window. She looked at the stars. She whispered, "Thank you." Kamala Harris had reached the last day. She had faced the pressure. She had faced the critics. She had faced herself. And she was still standing. Section 12. The Aftermath. The campaign was over. The speeches had ended. The crowds had gone home. Kamala Harris sat alone. Not in a meeting room. Not on a stage. But in a quiet space. She looked out the window. She saw the sky. She saw the stillness. She saw the truth. 107 days had passed. Fast. Loud. Heavy. She felt it all. In her breath. In her body. In her soul. She whispered, "It is done." But it did not feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. A shift. A release. She remembered the first day. The call. The shock. The silence. She remembered the first steps. The fear. The fire. The faith. She remembered the turning point. The decision to go deeper. To go slower. To go real. She remembered the last day. The final speech. The final breath. The final moment. She carried all of it. Every word. Every hug. Every tear. She opened her journal. She wrote slowly. She wrote clearly. She wrote honestly. She wrote, 107 days changed me. Not just as a leader, but as a person. She wrote, I learned to listen. I learned to pause. I learned to feel. She wrote, I did not win everything, but I did not lose myself. She closed the journal. She stood up. She walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection. She saw strength. She saw softness. She saw truth. She accepted it. She honored it. She carried it. She walked into the hallway. Her team was packing up. Boxes stacked. Signs folded. Screens turned off. They looked tired. They looked proud. They looked whole. Kamala smiled. She said, "Thank you." They gathered around her. They hugged her. They thanked her. One person said, "You gave us more than a campaign. You gave us a memory." Another said, "You showed us how to lead. With heart. With grace." Another said, "You reminded us what matters. People. Truth. Presence." Kamala nodded. She said, "You reminded me too." They laughed. They cried. They stood together. She said, "Let us carry this forward. Not just in politics, but in life." They agreed. They believed. They promised. Kamala walked outside. The air was cool. The sky was soft. The world was quiet. She walked slowly. She breathed deeply. She felt everything. She met a stranger on the sidewalk. He said, "I watched your journey. Gave me hope." She smiled. She said, "Thank you for walking with me." He nodded. He said, "Keep going." She said, "I will." She returned home. She opened the door. She stepped inside. She sat on the couch. She looked around. She felt peace. She missed this. The quiet. The stillness. The space. She closed her eyes. She remembered the faces. The voices. The stories. She remembered the nurse. The teacher. The child. She remembered the questions. The fears. The dreams. She remembered the truth. That leadership is not about power. It is about presence. She remembered the lesson. That courage is not loud. It is quiet. It is steady. She remembered the gift. That connection is not a strategy. It is a choice. She opened her journal again. She wrote one final entry. She wrote, 107 days taught me to lead. But more than that, they taught me to feel. She wrote, I faced pressure. I faced judgment. I faced myself. She wrote, I did not break. I did not bend. I did not hide. She wrote, I stood. I spoke. I stayed. She closed the journal. She placed it on the shelf. She whispered, Thank you. Kamala Harris had walked through fire. She had walked through fear. She had walked through truth. And she had come out whole. The aftermath was not loud. It was quiet. It was sacred. It was real. She did not rush to the next thing. She paused. She reflected. She breathed. She did not chase headlines. She chased healing. She did not seek applause. She sought peace. She did not hold regret. She held grace. She sat with her thoughts. She sat with her heart. She sat with her story. She whispered, This is mine. Kamala Harris had lived 107 days. Not just in public, but in truth. She had led. She had listened. She had learned. And now, she rested.